Peace and blessings, family. Welcome back to another edition. Thank you so much for being here. I am your boy Zamboni, and it is time to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for checking out the podcast on YouTube. What is the time is what that's called. Thank you for checking me out on Spotify, Tidal, Pandora. The song called Can't Help Myself. Super dope. Continues to be super dope. Thank you for checking it out on Patreon. Thank you for sliding into my Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. All of that is super helpful. Thank you so much for being here. Let us talk about the astrology of the week ahead. This week is a big one. We are finally getting to this Mars station. Today, Mars is stationing retrograde. So when it comes to Mars retrograde, so Mars is our action planet. That's the one that wants to come out and do stuff. It wants to handle business. It wants to push on things. There's an aggression with Mars. A lot of times we can think about rage or warring or something like this. I often like to think about Mars as being extremely motivating, right? A lot of times the most motivating thing can be discomfort. And so Mars is often thought of as being sharp or something like this. My favorite image, of course, is the one where you sit down in a chair, there's a tack in the chair. You sit on that tack, immediately you get your ass up, right? If that discomfort moved you to get up quickly. That's how Mars likes to work. Now, Mars retrograde, Mars is stationing retrograde in Gemini, square to Neptune, trine to Saturn. You know, whenever we see a Mars retrograde, so Mars is going to move backwards, right? So that means that Mars's proper operation, or Mars's sort of like average operation of moving forward and doing shit, we're not going to be seeing that at this time. Instead of that, what I personally have been experiencing up to this point has been a lot of like disparate, I've been vacillating back and forth between like extremely agitated and restless and like anxious. A lot of times with Mars in a Mercury sign, there'll be like anxious thoughts or nervousness or something like that. Too much mind stuff is going on at that time. And so there's been a lot of that. But then also that juxtaposed against like, there's no way I'm moving right now. I'm nearly dead. I'm so tired. Like, just can't move at all. So there's like back and forth in between that. And then, back to that anxiety or whatever, there's like a little bit of panic around that as well, right? So that is what I've been noticing. Whenever we think about Mars moving backwards, there's a sense of like, okay, so the Mars thing, and you can always look at what houses Mars rules in your chart. So that's the Scorpio house as well as the Aries house. So wherever those are in your chart, we can look at those topics as well for themes and as to like where this might be showing up in our charts or in our lives. So, that thing doesn't want to move forward anymore, right? Or at least for several weeks now. There's something here that needs to move backwards, that needs to reinvent, reimagine, reevaluate what's happening here. In a Mercury sign especially, I like to think about planning things or, like the Mars stuff. So what I've been telling my clients a lot recently has been like, moving forward isn't happening right now. And that can be frustrating. But if we just sort of think about it as this is a time period between now and January, this is a really good time to, rather than trying to push forward, because trying to push forward is likely to be met with obstacles. It's likely to be sort of like circumvented in whatever way. There's, you find yourself turned around and you're like, how did this happen? Like that sort of thing. So rather than doing that, now can be a really good time to sort of imagine where you're trying to go with things. Think about your ultimate goal, your destination. Where are you trying to get with it? And then look at the way that you've been doing that. And then be like, okay, so a bunch of this hasn't been working. And well, I haven't, honestly, there's a whole hole in my plan right here. And maybe like this sort of thing, right? So just like taking honest stock of that sort of thing, developing a good plan. You've got some months to do that, right? Mars isn't going to station direct again until mid-January. I think it's January 10th or something like that. Don't quote me on that date. But like plenty of time in between now and then, right? So there's a lot of time for us to reevaluate how we're doing things and sort of start to think about a better strategy. Once we make it into January, then it's going to be time to actually move forward and try that stuff. But in the meantime, now is a good time to plan, to get things together, to, you know, again, honestly taking stock about, and, you know, as we've got Mercury in Scorpio this week as well, right? Mercury in Scorpio is well known for being extremely honest, maybe pointed, maybe a little bit sharp-tongued or something like this, right? So that kind of honesty can be extremely useful at a time like this, right? That can be a little bit brutal if you're turning it on someone else, or even if you're turning it on yourself, honestly. And let us not forget to nourish the moon, to be consistently compassionate with ourselves and others and this sort of thing. But at the same time, if you need to be honest about something, if you need to recognize that shit's not going the way that you had thought it was going to go, or that, you know, that you haven't been holding up your own end of the bargain, you know, this is a really good time to sort of lean into your own accountability. We can also remember that Saturn is trine to that Mars as well. So anytime we can, and a trine is going to be helpful and supportive. And so if we lean into doing the Saturn things, then that can be helpful. Now, of course, when it comes to Saturn, then we also have to be aware that Saturn is square to Uranus, right? Saturn in Aquarius square to Uranus and Taurus. That's been going on for a long, long time. This aspect is actually beginning to separate at this point, but we will not feel like it's separating because we've got stuff in Scorpio making a T-square to all that, opposing Uranus and Taurus, as well as square to Saturn in Aquarius. So we're not actually going to get most of that aspect this week. We're going to get Venus sort of approaching that, and by the end of the week, Venus will have made that aspect. But still, the sun's got to go through that. Still, Mercury's got to go through that. There's going to be and those are going to carry the light in between Saturn and Uranus. So we're going to feel that Saturn-Uranus square big time throughout this week. So whenever we're thinking about Saturn-Uranus, then we're definitely thinking about necessity is the mother of invention. There's something here about innovation that wants to take place, especially because of challenges and obstacles. Again, if we're thinking about planning something, then we can take stock, be like, where have I encountered challenges and obstacles? I thought that this was going to work. I thought that my plan, because I've been talking about planning and like working around shit for like, I don't know, a year now or something like this. And it's not been working for whatever reason, right? Or it hasn't been working as well as I wanted it to, or maybe it went swimmingly. Maybe it went perfectly. Like, I just can't imagine. It went even better than I thought it was going to. Even still, you can look at that, examine that, and be like, okay, what happened that I wasn't aware of? Because that's one of the nice things about Uranus, right? Uranus is super unexpected about things. And so a lot of times when we talk about unexpected or changes or chaos and disruption and that kind of thing, then that can be a little boohoo situation, you know, like when we humans are faced with changes, then we often like to cry about it, and it's difficult for us. But sometimes surprises can be nice. Sometimes things like went a little better than you expected. Sometimes you got you found yourself lost, and then on a road that you had never been on before, you saw a bunch of roses and they smelled wonderful and that sort of thing, right? And then now you can be like, well, where am I? How do I get back here? How do I do this again, right? So all of that stuff is going to be wanting to take place here. And there's something with a T-square, it's going to be like right in your face about it, right? There's something that's like, you know, there's a head-on collision here, especially with Venus involved, and Venus is ruling that Uranus as well. We're going to have questions around like, how do I like it? And how, you know, I've tried this thing, and how does it feel to do that? With Venus in Scorpio, on the south node, square to Saturn, opposite Uranus and Taurus, that's not a super comfortable looking Venus. Venus is also under the beams of the sun. Venus is not serving up delicious like ice cream and things like that right now, right? Venus is currently serving up thorns. And so when I think about Venus in that kind of position, it's like, okay, I didn't like this. And so how can I navigate that? How can I come around that? And in opposition to Uranus and Taurus might be a little uncomfortable, but can definitely offer some good ideas, some ideas that you maybe hadn't thought of before. And so keep an open mind for that kind of thing. Thank you so much for being here. Check me out on Patreon. Send me a Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. I appreciate all y'all. Peace and blessings, family.